Welcome back to Outside Views, and today we're looking at the document that effectively ends British regulatory independence as we know it, the Dynamic Alignment Bill. This piece of legislation, scheduled to be introduced to Parliament by summer 2026, is the ultimate smoking gun of Keir Starmer's Brexit reset. And my personal view is that this bill is a confession, an admission that the freedom to diverge from Europe was a hollow promise that the British economy simply could not afford. We are now in January 2026, and the outside view is that the UK is preparing to become a rule taker on a massive scale, just to stop the economic bleeding. And I believe this bill is the most significant transfer of authority back to Brussels since the 2016 referendum, even if the government is too terrified to use those exact words. But as you know it, from the beginning of this channel, when I made my first Brexit video, I said I will always be very blunt and I will always be very frank about the facts. And I'm telling those to both sides. The plan is to allow the UK to automatically or dynamically align with new EU laws in specific high-value sectors without having to pass a new Act of Parliament every time. And my strong personal view is that this is the vassalage that the Brexiteers always warned about, yet it is being implemented by a Labour government that sees no other way to spark growth. By the end of 2026, we expect the UK to have adopted hundreds of new EU regulations, effectively erasing the benefits of divergence in favor of basic economic survival. Finally, some common sense here. The mechanics of this bill are being handled by the Starmer inner circle, specifically Cabinet Office Minister Chris Ward and the former Gordon Brown advisor Michael Allen. And the core of the strategy is to focus on low-hanging fruit, where the lack of alignment is currently causing the most pain for British business. The first major area is agri-food and veterinary standards, which covers everything from pesticide levels to animal welfare rules. And my view is that the government has realized that as long as British sausages and cheese face different rules than French ones, the border in the Irish Sea and at Dover will remain a disaster. By aligning with the EU's SPS rules, the UK hopes to remove up to 80% of the physical checks currently clogging up the ports. But here's the catch. If the EU decides to ban a specific chemical or change a welfare standard tomorrow, the UK will have to follow suit immediately or lose its frictionless access. And I believe that is a total surrender of sovereignty, but for the farmers in Wales and the exporters in Scotland, it is a surrender they are begging for. But is this really the way to go, or should they all really be honest which way to go? But the second pillar of the bill involves the energy market and carbon pricing. As of last week, the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, is in full effect, and it's a nightmare for British heavy industry. Without dynamic alignment of carbon prices, British steel and aluminum exporters are facing massive new taxes just to enter the European market. And my personal view is that the UK is being taxed into submission by the EU, and the Dynamic Alignment Bill is the white flag. By the end of 2026, the UK will likely link its emission trading scheme directly back to the EU's, effectively rejoining a core European economic structure. And we are also looking at alignment with the EU electricity market design, which is essential for the UK to keep the lights on and hit its green superpower targets. And I find it incredibly ironic that the very people who wanted to take back control of their energy are now finding out that the grid doesn't care about national borders. Beyond the big sectors, there is a hidden list of regulations that this bill will capture by stealth. We're talking about chemicals. That's REACH, where the UK's attempt to build its own database has been an expensive bureaucratic failure. And then there are product safety standards and professional qualifications, which are vital for the service economy and touring artists. And my view is that by December 2026, we will see the UK adopting EU rules on everything from the safety of toy components to the certification of architects. One internal Cabinet Office memo suggests that the UK could adopt over 400 individual EU regulatory updates in the first 6 months of the bill's operation alone. And the outside view is that the UK is quietly rebuilding the single market item by item, while publicly pretending that the red lines are still intact. I believe the British public is being led into a de facto membership of the single market with a lot of exceptions, and the only thing missing is a seat at the table where the rules are actually written. The political risk of this bill for Keir Starmer in late 2026 cannot be overstated, though. While the Europhile tribes and Labour think the bill doesn't go far enough, the Blue Labour holdouts and the Reform UK party will call it a great betrayal here. And Nigel Farage is already preparing to campaign against what he calls annexation by regulation. But my personal view is that the economic data will be Starmer's only shield. If the bill leads to a measurable drop in inflation and a boost in exports by the autumn, the public might not care about the sovereignty they lost. That was idiotic anyway. But however, I think Starmer is playing a dangerous game by not being honest about what this bill actually is. It's not a reset or a tweak. It's a fundamental admission that the Brexit model of 2016 is dead. And the outside view is that you can either have sovereignty and be poor, or alignment and be prosperous. And in 2026, Britain is finally choosing the latter. Let's see how long it will take until they finally choose that we want to be the ones that will have the best of both worlds, that of my own country and of a big trading bloc, while having a say at the table. That is a distant, distant future, and a lot will have to happen for that in the UK, but they finally need to be honest. And in conclusion, the Dynamic Alignment Bill is the moment the Brexit fever finally breaks in the halls of power. It's a massive, it's a complex, and a highly controversial piece of legislation that will dominate the British headlines for the rest of the year. And by the end of 2026, the UK will be more European in its laws than it has been at any point since the 2020 exit. And my personal view is that this is the only logical path forward, but it comes at the price of being a vassal state that follows rules and no longer helps to create. You see the problem here, and there's one way to repair that one. The Starmer revolution is turning out to be a return to the status quo, delivered one regulation at a time. And as we watch this bill move through the Commons this summer, remember, the ghost of the single market is being summoned back to save the UK economy.